Hi, I'm Rachel, and this is my April 2026 book haul. As usual, I'm filming near the end of the month, which this month coincides with Indie Bookstore Day in the US, and I believe in Canada as well. And I have some goodies to share, starting even with this flyer. This is what the DC area bookstores, really they've been doing this for a few years now. They encourage us to do a book crawl to all of the participating bookstores, and all of their logos are listed on the back. And if when you go to each bookstore, they'll stamp it, and then if you get to the sixth bookstore, you'll get a special prize like a tote bag or something like that. And most years I don't really participate in this at all. Usually I try to only go to one or two at most bookstores on Indie Bookstore Day. This year I increased that ceiling a bit. I went to 3 bookstores. I gotta get my finger in the right place here. Here's Politics and Prose. Here is East City Books, and then here is Little District Books. So yeah, if I'd actually gone to all 6, I think they would have taken this from me. But I decided to not do the whole shebang, you know, because I have budgetary needs and plenty of other opportunities to spend some money, I think, coming up in May, that some of which will be on this BookTube channel. Also, if I'm being completely honest, the 3 books I'm about to show you do not comprise all of my April book hauling. I do also have these 2 books I got from Abe Booksellers, which they're going to be part of my Maybe Midrash readathon in May, so I'll just go talk about them then. Pretend you didn't see them. So yeah, as I mentioned, when it comes to Indie Bookstore Day, I picked up 3 books, 1 per bookstore. And I also did a little bit of filming just to give a sense of the day. I tried to film, you know, the entrance to each bookstore and a little bit of their indie bookstore merch. So here you go. All right, and now a little more about each of these 3 books. I started at Politics and Prose. Politics and Prose is DC area's kind of big bookstore. It's certainly the biggest of all the indies. And they also have the nice service, not only, I guess, of having the largest inventory, but you can search for books they have in the store. And I was very particularly searching for the book that I decided to buy from Politics and Prose. It came out earlier last week. This is When We See You Again by Rachel Goldberg Polin. I think in the book world it's technically a memoir, although she's resistant to the term. It's largely about her response, however, to the abduction and murder of her son Hirsch, who was kidnapped and taken as a hostage on October 7th from the Nova Music Festival in Israel. And then he was killed in captivity a little under a year later. And she really, and her husband, became the voice of the hostages. They were sort of the most prominent in the news, and she was incredibly well spoken. And I've also been hearing her give interviews about this book. And so I feel like there's going to be a lot of wisdom in this book, and I definitely wanted to support her. She does have some tangential associations with my synagogue and and one of my rabbis as well. And then here on the back, most books, she's not a traditional writer, and so this is what she put on the back of this book. Next, I went to Little District Books. This is a DC bookstore that caters to the LGBTQ community. I think the majority of the books they sell are about queer themes. And they recently moved into a larger storefront. So I actually hadn't been to visit them since before the move. So it was interesting to go. It was kind of almost a little bit dark or sort of gray, like, and then they had that sort of utilitarian feel inside as well, with all of the pipes and all showing. Although I didn't take a lot of video inside the store, but it was very packed. People were definitely taking advantage, and so that's good to see as well. And I had some ideas about what I might possibly want to buy there, although mostly I really told myself for these next two books I wanted to stick to my pre-existing TBR. Although one of my thoughts was that maybe I'd get a newer book, but then I decided, especially after getting Rachel Goldberg Poland's book, that maybe it would be okay for me to get a backlist title, something in paperback, maybe a little cheaper, but still I'd be supporting the store. So anyway, I just went browsing through the stacks to try to find something that would, fit my TBR and was, that they had. And so I found With Teeth by Kristen Arnett, which I've had on my TBR list for a few years. So I'm now excited to have it on my physical shelves as well. To read from the back, it says, if she's being honest, Sammy Lucas is scared of her son. Working from home in the close quarters of their Florida house, she lives with one wary eye peeled on Samson, a sullen, unknowable boy who resists her every attempt to bond with him. Uncertain in her own feelings about motherhood, she tries her best, driving, cleaning, cooking, prodding him to finish projects for school, while growing increasingly resentful of Monica, her confident but absent wife. As Samson grows from a feral toddler to a surly teenager, Sammy's life begins to deteriorate into a mess of unruly behavior, and her struggle to create a picture-perfect queer family unravels. When her son's hostility finally spills over into physical aggression, Sammy must confront her role in the mess, and the possibility that the answers may be beyond her reach. And I'm pretty sure I must have thought this when I put the book on my TBR, but the first thing it made me think of is We Need to Talk About Kevin by Lionel Shriver, which I think has a very similar premise about a mother who is distant and a son who becomes violent and kind of questions the mother's culpability in that relationship. So I'll be interested to see how it's handled here. Next, I went to East City Books, which actually is just a couple of doors down from Little District Books. So it kind of surprised me at first that they'd move in such close proximity to another bookstore, because I feel like not every day is Indie Bookstore Day where the bookstores band together. They are kind of competition in a certain way, but apparently that's not how they see it. In fact, I think they might share some staff, and it's kind of nice to think, that they could work in tandem in a way. Also, I went to East City Books because I think it might be my favorite of the DC indies. It just has a nice vibe. It's colorful and bright, and I've enjoyed the author events I've gone to there. And I think I've had the best interactions with staff there than I've had with, at any other bookstore as well. Not to say I've had any negative ones, but those ones seem particularly nice. So anyway, that's why I decided maybe this one's my favorite, and I decided to see what books they had on their shelves that might be on my TBR list, and I found this one. This is Like Mother by Susan Rieger. And so I guess in a way it's a similar theme. It's about parenthood again. And this one also has a blurb from Allegra Goodman, who's one of my favorite authors. And she says that it's in the spirit of Meg Wolitzer, Jean Hanff Korelitz, and the great Nora Ephron. And I also have really enjoyed Meg Wolitzer and the one Jean Hanff Korelitz novel I read. And I probably should read some Nora Ephron as well. But now I have this one, and I'm excited that it's on my shelves. So it's also historical fiction. It takes place in Detroit, 1960. And it says, Lila Perea is 2 years old when her angry, abusive father has her mother committed to an asylum. Lila never sees her mother again. 3 decades later, having mustered everything she has, brains, charm, talent, blonde hair, Lila rises to the pinnacle of American media as the powerful, brilliant executive editor of the Washington Globe. Not one to look back, Lila unapologetically and single-mindedly puts her career first, leaving the rearing of her daughters to her generous husband. This solution works for her 2 older daughters, but not for Grace, her youngest. Grace longs for her mother's attention, yet chafes at living in her shadow. After Lila dies, Grace realizes she'll never make her own way in the world until she understands where she and they both come from. So, yeah, I guess maybe, this is a little bit of a confusing blurb going into it in more detail, because I guess the 60s is about Lila, but Grace might be the main character and the person pushing the plot, 30 years into the future. But once again, it seems like, I didn't do this necessarily on purpose, but it is about the relations between, parents and children, and how your decisions as a parent might impact your children and their futures. And I guess to a certain degree, that's also what Rachel Goldberg Poland's memoir is about, in that it's about the complicated and sometimes painful relation between parents and children, although the pain in that one is certainly about losing a child to terror. So, yeah. I guess that about covers it for me now. I'm going to leave the Goodreads links for all of these 3 books listed down below in case you'd like more information, as well as links to these 3 bookstores. I highly encourage you to come visit them if you're ever in the DC area. And then I'll also leave a link to the Indie Bookstore webpage. I'm already looking forward to next year and what I might do for it. And I'm also having a lot of fun, looking through YouTube at what other people have posted as well in their videos. And I'd love to hear if you took part in Indie Bookstore Day, what your experience was like and what books you found. Anyway, I should be back on this channel in the near future with a Would You Read It challenge video. This is where I look at the first few paragraphs to the first page of ballots of the BookTube prize of yesteryear, basically. And I decide what I think of all the books, and it's my way to at least get through and consider, to a certain fashion, all of the books from the fiction division anyway. So stay tuned for that. And thanks so much for watching, everyone. I'll see you next time.